Assalamualaikum and hello to our honorable lecturer, Madam Siti Jamila binti Muhammad Japilus and fellow friends. Resistance exercise has proven to be a safe and effective method of conditioning for individuals with various needs, goals, and abilities. Though much of what we understand about the stimulus of resistance exercise has been gained through examination of the acute and chronic responses of adult men to various training protocols, resistance exercise for children, women, and older people has received increasing public and medical attentions in recent years. When designing and evaluating resistance training program, strength and conditioning professionals need to understand age and sex-related differences in body composition, muscular performance, and trainability, and their implication for each individual. For the purpose of this presentation is, resistance exercise is defined as a specialized method of conditioning that involves the progressive use of resistance to increase one's ability to exert or resist force. So, in this section, the terms growth, development, and maturation are used to describe changes that occur in the body throughout life. The term growth refers to an increase in body size or a particular body part. Development describes the natural progression from prenatal life to adulthood, and maturation refers to the process of becoming mature and fully functional. Puberty refers to a period of time in which secondary sex characteristics develop and a child is transformed into a young adult. During puberty, changes also occur in body composition and the performance of physical skills. Chronological age versus biological age. Chronological age is defined as the stage of maturation or development described in months and years. Biological age is the stage of maturation put in terms of skeletal age, sexual maturation, and physical maturity. The degree of growth in stature or the subdimensions of the body is your somatic age. The training age is the amount of time someone has followed a formalized and supervised resistance training program. Puberty is when secondary characteristics are developing and children have become young adults. Changes occur in body composition and physical skill performance during puberty. Children don't grow at a constant rate. There are many differences between individuals in physical development at any age. Young athletes may have high risk of injury at their peak high velocity. Next, muscle and bone growth. Muscle mass increases steadily through the years of development. There are many hormonal increases during puberty in boys, which results in a great increase in muscle mass and shoulder widening. Girls have a higher increase in estrogen production, which will cause an increased body fat deposition, development of breast, and hip widening. Bone formation occurs in the diaphysis, which is the central shaft of a long bone, and in the growth cartilage, which is located at three sites in the child: the epiphyseal plate, the joint surface, and the apophyseal incision of muscle tendon units. When the epiphyseal plates become completely ossified, the long bones stop growing. Although bones typically begin to fuse during the early adolescence, girls generally achieve full bone maturity about 2 to 3 years before boys. The actual age varies considerably, but most bones are fused by the early 20s. Long bones stop growing when the epiphyseal plates become ossified. Growth cartilage trauma and overuse is a major concern for children. Next, the developmental change in muscular strength. For boys, the gains in strength occurs about 1.2 years following height velocity and 0.8 years after peak weight velocity. For girls, peak strength gains happen after peak height velocity, but there is more variation for individuals relating to strength to height and body weight. Peak strength is typically present by about age 20 in untrained women and between 20 and 30 for men who are untrained. Nervous system development is an important factor in expressing muscular strength. There are three general body types. First, mesomorphic bodies are muscular with broad shoulder. Second, endomorphic bodies are rounder and have broader hips. And lastly, ectomorphic bodies are taller and slenderer. Youth resistance training. Training induced gain from short, low-volume programs are unable to be distinguished from gains due to normal growth and development. Strength gains in the 30 to 40% range have been observed on average in the untrained pre-adolescent children following short-term resistance program. Like adults, children need to continuously train in order to maintain strength advantages from the exercise-induced adaptation. First and foremost, strength and conditioning professionals must remember that children are not miniature adults. No matter how big or strong a child is, children are physically less mature and are often experiencing training activities for the very first time. Children should begin resistance training at a level that is commensurate with their maturity level, physical abilities, and individual goals. Adapt programs and training philosophies are not appropriate for younger populations. Often, the intensity and volume of training are too severe and the recovery periods are inadequate for a child's fitness level. When introducing children to resistance training activities, it is always better to underestimate their physical abilities and gradually increase the volume and intensity of training than to overshoot their abilities and risk an injury. Youth resistance training. Potential benefits. Participation in these programs can influence health and fitness measures. And then potential risks and concerns. Prescribed programs are typically safe. And lastly, program design considerations for children. Quality of the instruction and the rate of progression should be considered. Skill development, personal success, and fun are major things to consider. Next, how can we reduce the risk of overuse injuries in youth? Sport medicine physician should evaluate young athletes before their participation in sports. And then, parents should be educated by the professionals regarding the risks and benefits of competitive sports. Third, children and adolescents need to be encouraged to participate in long-term programs with proper recovery time between sports season. Next, programs for training need to be multidimensional. They need to incorporate resistance training elements, speed, plyometric, and agility development, fundamental movement skills, and dynamic stabilization. Next, coaches for youth need to have well-planned strategies for recovery in between their hard workouts and competitions. And then, healthy lifestyle habits should be followed by youth. Continued professional development programs should be participated in by youth sport coaches. Coaches need to both support and encourage their youth to participate in activity, but they shouldn't pressure them to perform beyond their capabilities. Last but not least, children should try many different sports and activities. Next, I will move on to the youth resistance guidelines. Every child needs to know the risks and benefits that come with resistance training. Fitness professionals that are both competent and caring should supervise and training session. Exercise environments should be safe and hazard-free. Equipment need to be in good condition and proper size for the children to prevent any injuries. Dynamic warm-ups are recommended before resistance training. Static stretching should occur following resistance training. And then, children should be carefully monitored to see their tolerance to exercise stress. You should start off with light loads. Resistance should gradually increase as their strength improves, typically increase 5 to 10% at a time. Next, 1 to 3 sets of 6 to 15 repetition is the typical setup for moves and is based on the child's needs and goals. If you use appropriate loads and teach proper form, then you can teach youth advanced multi-joint exercises. Adults should be available to sport assist children. Resistance training programs need to be varied systematically during the year. Next, I will explain the FITT plan for physical activity for children. Physical activity is important for everyone in the family. The following information is from the American Academy of Pediatrics, summarizing the FITT methods and includes general fitness tips and an activity log. So the FITT method is frequency, intensity, time, and type. It's one way to remember the general guidelines for what should be included in a fitness plan. Remember, it is important to keep in mind that each family member's fitness goals will be different based on age, sex, current fitness level, and available resources. First, frequency. Do some type of physical activity every day. And then, intensity. Choose an activity that is at least moderate in intensity, and also try to add a few more vigorous activities over the week. And then, time. Plan on a total time of at least 60 minutes of activity each day. This can be done all at once or added together over several shorter 10 to 15 minutes blocks of activity. Breaking it up into smaller blocks of time is a great way to start a new program or fit activity into a busy schedule. Last, type. The type of activity can include a variety of team sports, individual sports, recreational activities, family activities, active hobbies, and walking or bicycling for fun and transportation. Several times every week, do weight-bearing activities that promote muscle strength, flexibility, and bone health. The most important thing is to choose something fun. These are the examples of moderate and vigorous activities. For moderate activity, you can do slow walking for 3.5 miles per hour, slow bike riding less than 10 miles per hour, dancing, weightlifting with light workout, and stretching. Meanwhile, for vigorous activity, you can do fast walking for 4.5 miles per hour, fast bike riding more than 10 miles per hour, jogging or running, aerobics, competitive sports such as basketball, football, soccer, and etc. Tips for the parents: make time to be active. School-age youth should be participate every day in 60 minutes or more of moderate to vigorous physical activity that is right for their age, enjoyable, and involves a variety of activities. And then, limit sedentary activities. There are activities where you're sitting down a lot, like watching TV, using the computer, or playing video games. Spend no more than 2 hours per day in front of a screen.
Female athletes, women who engage in resistance training activities on a regular basis, can improve their health, develop positive self-image, lower their risk of degenerative disease such as osteoporosis, and improve their athletic performance. Whereas in the past, some women may have questioned the value of resistance training or avoided it altogether due to social stigmas. Evidence clearly shows that women are capable of tolerating and adapting to the stresses of resistance exercise, and that the benefits are substantial. The current interest in resistance training among women, as well as the growth of female weightlifting competition. This is the section outline. There are two sections, as you can see. The first one is sex difference. In sex difference, you will see body size and composition, also strength and power output. Secondly, the resistance training for female athletes, which are the trainability of women, also the program design considerations for women. Sex difference. Body composition. Prior to puberty, there are no significant differences in height, weight, or body size between boys and girls. As puberty progresses, differences in these measurements become more noticeable owing primarily to hormonal changes. During puberty, estrogen production increases fat deposition and breast development in girls, whereas testosterone production increases bone formation and protein synthesis in boys. Though estrogen stimulates bone growth, boys have a longer growth period, so adult men tend to be taller than adult women. Adult women on average have more body fat and less muscle and bone than adult men. Furthermore, women have a lower total body weight than men. Although some female athletes have lower fat percentages than untrained men, extremely low fat percentages in women may have negative health consequences. Although anthropometric measurements show that men have wider shoulders relative to their waist and Strength and output. It is critical to distinguish between absolute and relative measures of training-induced changes in muscular strength between sexes. Women have roughly two-thirds the strength of men in terms of absolute strength. Women's absolute lower body strength is generally closer to male values than absolute upper body strength values. Sex-related differences in body composition, anthropometric characteristic, and fat-free mass distribution. Women have less muscle mass above the waist. Resistance training for female. Trainability of women. Women can increase their strength at the same as men or faster. Women appear to gain strength at the same or faster rate as men when they participate in a resistance training program. For program design considerations for women, it is important for strength and conditioning professionals to be aware of the increasing incidence of knee injuries in female athletes, particularly in sports. For the upper body strength development, a significant portion of training volume must be devoted to the upper body. One or two additional exercises or sets should be performed. The prevention of sport injuries is female basketball players are 6 times more likely than males to sustain ACL tears, most of which occur through non-contact mechanisms, resistance exercises for the lower body, and agility balance also plyometric drills. How can female athletes reduce their risk of injury? First one is begin with a sport medicine physician's preparation screening. Second, take part in year-round conditioning program. Next, exercise session must be preceded by a general dynamic warm-up and specific warm-up that included movement like those involved in the activity. Also, athletes should dress appropriately for practice and games. Lastly, athletes should be encouraged to maximize their athletic potential by optimizing their dietary intake.
In this video, I'm gonna tell about age and sex related differences and implications for resistance training for older adults. For age and related changes in musculoskeletal health, significant changes in body composition with advanced age can lead to the development of physical functional impairments and injury. The well-documented loss of bone and muscle with age not only makes activities of daily life more difficult, but also increases the risk of falls, hip fractures, and long-term disability. Bones become fragile with age because of a decrease in bone mineral content that causes an increase in bone porosity. The bone mineral content, that microarchitecture of bone, can deteriorate to such an extent that even activities of daily life may cause a bone fracture, particularly of the hip, spine, or wrist. Osteopenia occurs when there is a bone mineral density between -1 and -2.5 standard deviation of the young adult mean. Osteoporosis occurs when there is a bone mineral density that is lower than -2.4 of the young adult mean. These conditions, which result in bones and with less density and stretch, are serious concerns in older people, particularly women. The slow but progressive loss of bone with age has been linked to physical inactivity and to hormonal, nutritional, mechanical, and genetic factors. With advanced ages, we see a loss of muscle mass largely attributed to decreased physical activity. Muscular strength and power follow this muscle mass loss. In age-related changes in neuromuscular functions, advancing age is also associated with a loss of muscle mass, which has been termed sarcopenia, lowered reaction time, and an impaired balance and stability. The reduction in the size or number of muscle fibers, especially the type 2 fibers, also leads to a decrease in the ability of a muscle to generate power. Since everyday activities required a certain degree of power development, a decrease in the ability of muscles to produce force rapidly may adversely affect the ability of older adults to safely perform activities such as stair climbing and walking. Since power recedes at a faster rate than muscle strength with age, the development of power may be most important for the performance of daily activities as well as the prevention of accidental falls in older adults. Factors that may contribute to the age-related decline in muscle strength and power include reductions in muscle mass, nervous system changes, hormonal changes, poor nutrition, and physical inactivity. Advancing age is associated with a loss of muscle mass, which is due to physical inactivity, and the selective loss of type 2 fast twitch muscle fibers. A direct result of the reduction in muscle mass is a loss of muscular strength and power. Inner responsiveness to resistance training in older adults, older men and women still have the ability to improve their own strength and functional ability. Aerobic and resistance exercise are both beneficial to older adults. Only resistance training can give improvements in muscular strength and power. Resistance training has also been shown to have an important effect on energy balance in older adults, as evidenced by an increase in the resting metabolic rate of men and women who resistance train. Although the response of both to resistance training exercise is influenced by a complex interaction of many variables like hormonal status, activity history, and nutrition. It has been reported that resistance exercise has a positive effect on bone health in older men and women. Regularly, performance resistance training can offset the age-related declines in bone health by maintaining or increasing bone mineral density. Resistance training may also reduce the risk of osteoporotic fractures by improving dynamic balance, muscle mass, and overall level of physical activity. While there is no doubt that resistance exercise can improve bone health in older adults, the interaction of exercise with hormonal and nutritional factors influence the degree of benefit of the exercise program. For the safety recommendation for resistance training for older adults, 5 to 10 minutes for warm-ups should happen prior to exercise. Doing static stretching is important before and after resistance training. Resistance weeks that won't overtax the musculoskeletal system should be used. Exercise should be performed in a pain-free range of motion, and qualified instructor should be giving the exercise instruction. Fit for older adults, the era phase of the training program should be directed toward learning proper exercise technique while minimizing the potential for muscle soreness and injury. In training older men and women, it is particularly important to focus on the major muscle groups that are used in everyday activities, such as load carrying and climbing stairs. It should gradually progress from one set of 8 to 12 repetitions at a relatively low intensity, 40% to 50% 1 RM, to higher training volumes and intensities like 3 sets per exercise with 60% to 80% of 1 RM, depending on individual needs, goals, and abilities. A resistance training program for older men and women should vary in volume and intensity throughout the year to lessen the likelihood of overtraining and ensure that progress is made throughout the training period. Because recovery from a training season may take longer in older populations. A training frequency of twice per week is recommended, at least during the initial adaptation period. At last, strength and conditioning professionals should listen to individual concerns and be able to modify a training program based on the person's health history and individual goals. For the conclusion, it shows that resistance exercise can be a safe and effective method of conditioning for males and females of all ages and abilities. The potential benefits include improvements in musculoskeletal health and sport performance, as well as in self-image and confidence. Knowledge of age and sex-related differences is essential to the development and evaluation of safe and effective resistance training programs. And lastly, strength and conditioning professionals should be aware that individual responses to resistance exercise may vary greatly and should be sensitive to the